Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Today's topic is about Nawaz Sharif. Nawaz Sharif's era as Prime Minister from 1991 to 1993. We are going to discuss about how successful his policies were or how unsuccessful his policies were during the era 1990 to 1993. Later on, Nawaz Sharif again established a government in 1997, which continued till 1999. But this we are going to discuss in the next lecture, inshallah. Now, let's see what his successes were and what syllabus we are going to cover in this discussion and detail. So, let's see that. Syllabus list which we are going to see, it is about that during his era, there was the growth of crime rate was quite high at that time, and drug use was very common, which was coming from Ziaulak's time, from Afghan-Russia war. A lot of ammunition and drugs were coming to Pakistan. That problem was still going on. He believed in privatization policy. He believed in industrialization. He believed in establishing new businesses, small and large businesses. He himself was a businessman. He himself was the owner of Ittifaq Foundries. So he believed that if Pakistan wanted to prosper, there was the need that it must establish its own industries at smaller and larger scale. So for this purpose, his privatization policy and mostly getting profit from such institutions which were working on private basis and earning money for themselves and paying taxes to the government. So this kind of policy was his main agenda. Another problem which is criticized during his time was BCCI corruption. It was a bank, international bank, about which we are going to discuss the detail in the coming slides. And this bank was ended due to fraud and manipulation, and that was under British investigation team. So it was seen that it was a very successful bank, but because Nawaz Sharif's family took a lot of money from this bank. Other politicians took a lot of money. It is also said that money was not returned to the bank by those politicians, and there was inside the bank system there was manipulation and there was fraud. So this bank basically was ended. There were there was some very severe and grave issue, though Nawaz Sharif tried to overcome this issue later on. It was cooperative societies scandal in Punjab, in which many poor people submitted their money for profit purposes. But later on, this money was confiscated, and this money was utilized for the expansion of Ittifaq Foundries, and which was the business of Nawaz Sharif. So this was an issue. Nawaz Sharif returned money to the people, lekin most of those were there who thought that it was a cause of bad reputation for PMLN. Nuclear tests were also done in 1998. Pakistan had to face many sanctions. Pakistan was pressurized not to do that. But as India was constantly threatening Pakistan, so there was the need to show its nuclear power and to do nuclear tests to confirm that Pakistan had that power and Pakistan was not behind in its weaponry than its rivals. Then refusals non-proliferation treaty was there, where US was constantly pressurizing Pakistan to end its nuclear program, but it was not ended. In the meanwhile, Gulf War was also going on. Pakistan was criticized because of nuclear program, and then many workers who were working in these areas due to Gulf War, many of them came back to Pakistan, and income which was coming through this source was reduced. So there was remittances reduced, and there was problem in the country, financial problems in the country. Clashes on Kashmir were constantly going on with India. India was not ready to sit on any table or discuss about Kashmir issue, while Pakistan was constantly trying that something must be done, but nothing, no result was there. That was considered as the weakness of the government if Kashmir issue was not resolved or nothing was done. So finally, there were clashes between the president and Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif, and on the appointment of commander-in-chief that we are going to discuss in the upcoming slides. So that basically caused the end of Nawaz Sharif's era and his dismissal. Some successful steps which were taken by him, that he declared national reconstruction program, and he established started giving loans to the soft loans to the people who were establishing their small industries, and large industries also were given a lot of loans and concessions, and in this manner chances of employment increased in the country. He also wanted to modernize the system, so mostly his focus was not on the rural areas but modernization of urban areas, and the establishment of different roads, different transport means of transports, markets, and cities were more modernized, and industries were modernized with new machines. So in this manner, for the plentiful workforce which was available, he wanted to utilize the natural resources and establish best industries in Pakistan. His focus was mainly on the city areas. Privatization and industries and other institutions, banks even started working very well. Many other industries, for example, shipping industry expanded. Electricity, Brotha hydro power plant project was done. The electrification of Gwadar mini port was done. So this kind of works, which were large projects, but those were good for the establishment of industries and establishment of businesses. Those were his main agenda. Airlines were also expanded. New airlines, Shaheen Airline and Bhoja Airline were also started. Telecommunication system was also enhanced in during his time. And some other steps which were taken by him with that he, on the smaller scale inside the cities, he started yellow cab scheme, and he imported a lot of cars from other countries, and those were given on very soft loan, easy installments to the people who wanted, young men who wanted to come into this profession. And in this manner, transport became not only easy, but along with that, many of the young men got employment, self-employment. Major projects of which is still working, which is still under construction, which is still expanding, was his motorway project, which is basically which is a landmark project. And according to this, many modern roads were designed. M2, which was between Islamabad and Lahore, was the first motorway which was completed in 1997. And this road not only increased internal businesses and trade, but it gave a sample road to the other road construction companies to Pakistan, that what kind of excellent road and maintenance and system of roads and toll tax system that and computerized system with cameras and everything could be established. So many internal roads were also started constructing on the same lines. This motorway project is not only going to connect the major cities, but it is going to connect mostly all parts of Pakistan. When this all motorway project is completed, it is still on the way. Some problems were there during his era, like foreign capital was not much coming because Afghan-Russia was ended. Afghan-Russia war was ended. US, which was giving a lot of money in the names of refugees to Pakistan, and those were supporting the economy also with foreign currency to some extent, but that capital was certainly reduced now, and now Pakistan had to depend upon its own foreign resources, its own remittances, and other resources by its trade. So that was a problem for his government, which suddenly came over there, and he had to do something about that. A nuclear program was there, but US was constantly forcing him to end that nuclear program, which he could not, because he was not the only one who could decide about nuclear program. There were many other companies also, many other institutions of Pakistan also, who had to decide about nuclear program, and that continued. So that was also causing a tussle between Sharif's government and USA. In the meanwhile, many Pakistanis were coming back from Middle East. So that was also a pressure, because those remittances which were brought by these people in result of a Gulf war, when these workers came back. So that source of money, remittances source of money, also reduced. So that caused financial issues for him. Bank of Credit and Commerce, excuse me, International, was the one which was working very successfully in Pakistan. It collapsed suddenly, and when British investigative team came over here, they came to know that manipulation and fraud activities were very common in that bank. That is why it happened. But the problem was those investors who were there in Pakistan, who had invested their money in this bank, now they didn't get anything because of the sudden collapse of this bank, and those investors lost huge sums. But it was a stigma on Sharif's government, because during his government era time this happened, and government was considered responsible to take care of such things and to give back something to the investors, but nothing was given to them. Another problem of cooperative societies, which is known as cooperative societies scandal, it is also said that almost 700,000 poor Pakistanis who invested their money in these cooperative societies, that they were going to get profit on their invested money. That was finished, that those cooperative societies ended just in a day. And billions of rupees, it was said that those were granted to Sharif's family business in Ittifaq Foundries, and it was a stigma. It damaged his reputation. He quickly, many of even those people who personally knew Nawaz Sharif, they had invested their money in these cooperative societies, but that money was lost. Though Nawaz Sharif returned some of that money quickly, but it damaged his reputation, and it created a problem for him to get vote in the next elections. Some other failures were because of the social issues like Kalashnikov culture, terrorism, crime rate was high, murders, and it was especially in Sindh and Balochistan, but almost all parts of the country were facing this problem. Our police and army were constantly working for this, and those were able to control that. But at that time, these problems were constantly taking the toll, taking the energy, and resources were spent on that. And because of this unrest, international businesses were not coming in Pakistan. In the meanwhile, it was noticed that those politicians and ethnic group leaders who wanted to take revenge from their rivals, they were also using these automatic weaponry groups, and they were killing each other or having ransoms. So this kind of problems were there, that very influential people were even using such negative things, and those were to curb, those were to control, and that was a difficult issue, but he was unable to control that fully. Drug addiction had become very common in the country. It was a worst social issue at that time, because by 1999 there were reports that 4 million heroin addicts were there in our society, and government was unable to do anything about that. Now, these were after these problems, now let's evaluate overall whatever the problem was and whatever the situation was because of which he had to lose his government and he could not complete his 5 years tenure. Nawaz Sharif had established his government with the support of IGI, which was Islami Jamhuri Ittihad, and President Ishaq Khan, who had turned against Benazir, and he had supported Nawaz Sharif. But now both of those, like IGI turned against him because they wanted complete Islamic system. Nawaz Sharif introduced a Shariat bill to satisfy them, but the size of laws and systems and ratio of rules they wanted in the country, and the size of authority ulamas wanted in the government, that was not given to them. So they blamed that, for example, interest-free system banking was decided to be introduced, but that was not done. So this kind of examples were given to the public, given to the IGI members, and IGI started turning against Nawaz Sharif, and they started blaming him that he had made false promises with them. And even if he had brought Shariat bill, but it was just a show off, but in reality he was not much interested. But Nawaz Sharif could not give that much authority to IGI that his own authority could be shadowed. In 1993, a problem occurred that President Ghulam Isa Khan appointed General Abdul Wahid Kakar. and as chief of army staff. He was appointed because General Asif Nawaz Janjua, who was the former army chief, he was during his duty, he certainly died, and there was the need of a new army chief. Nawaz Sharif wanted to appoint army chief of his own choice, while president wanted to appoint Abdul Wahid Kakar. So this clash occurred between president and prime minister. Here Nawaz Sharif started demanding that president must leave his authority related to 8th Amendment, and Nawaz Sharif must be given the right to appoint the chief of army staff. So this clash increased, and president finally dismissed Nawaz Sharif government on 19th April 1993. So in this manner, Nawaz Sharif could not complete his 5 years tenure, but if overall his era is evaluated, to some extent it was good, because motorway project was quite good enough, and some industries were also established, which later on flourished. But the social and general issues in the society continued in the same manner, which could be ended later on. Now, this is the end of the discussion. Thank you so very much. Assalamu alaikum.